What's up, Mapsters? Welcome to another video in our From Zero to Map QGIS series. Today we're going to be having a look at adding vector data to your QGIS project. So you might have gotten some data and you don't know what to do with it because it has a spatial component. But spatial data is just like any other data. The key is that you need the right software to take a look at it. So I'm going to show you today in QGIS how to open a variety of different vector data sources. So you could have found these from all over the web. You could get them from an open data portal. You might have gotten some Esri shapefiles or Geo Database files that you want to open. You could have them from your GPS if you've been hiking or canoeing or paddling and you want to take a look at the data you've collected from your trips. I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of file formats, including Esri shapefiles, Geo Databases, KML, GeoJSON, GPXs from your GPS, and more. So let's go ahead and take a look. I've collected the data for today's tutorial from a variety of sources, including open data portals, the USGS, open access data from the National Park System, as well as data I've collected myself on my GPS. So no matter what data you have, you're going to be able to get it open and working in QGIS. So let's get started looking at shapefiles. So the shapefile is an Esri format. It's kind of ubiquitous in the GIS world. If you're downloading anything off the internet, chances are you've seen a shapefile. So these files all have different extensions. So the .shp specifies the geometry. The .shx is used for indexing. The .dbf has the actual attribute information. Then there's a bunch of optional files. The .prj file stores the projection information, which helps us know where to put the data in space and what projection it's using. The XML contains metadata. There's a .sbn and sbx, which both can be used to optimize load times, and the .cpg has encoding information. So let's jump on over to QGIS and have a look at a shapefile. So you'll quickly find in GIS there's usually more than one way to do something. So we're going to start by adding the shapefile through the layer menu. So go layer, add vector layer, and then we're going to browse for our shapefile. So right now I'm just looking at all files, and I'm going to go to my folder with shapefiles. And here you can see the variety of different file types and that they all have the same name. So what I'm going to do is switch this filter here to shapefile, and now you can see that it's cleaned itself up. So let's go ahead and add these, and if you want, you can shift click to add a bunch at once, hit open, add, and close out of this dialog. So now we have them all in our map. So you can see here at the bottom left in the layers menu by default is the order of drawing. So we have our points on the bottom, so I'm just going to click and drag those up. And then we have states. We're going to go ahead and put the roads up. So you see everything kind of came in green. But there we have all of those files. So these shapefiles I got are from Natural Earth data. And it's just a good way to get a data set to create your base map. So here we go. I've quickly added these to QGIS. And now I have set up the scene for the world, as well as all the major populated places and road networks. So let's remove those, and I'm going to show you another way to add them. So in QGIS, you can also just use the browser menu. And for shapefiles and most of the file types today, I'm going to recommend using the browser because it's just simpler. So if I go here, I'm going to navigate to my folder again. And let's just quickly see here, adding data, Esri. And here you go. It's already filtered to the .shps, and we can just drag and drop them into the map. So next we're going to have a look at the Geo Database. So Geo Database is an Esri specific format, and you might wonder, why am I using this in QGIS? Actually, in QGIS you can only read from a Geo Database. You can't actually write to it. So the main reason you'd be using it is because you have some Esri data or you've downloaded something off the web and you want to use it. For Geo Databases, let's just go to the browser, and you can see here my .gdb. If you expand this, again, you can see all the feature classes within it. Shift click, and we can drag them onto the map. All right, Libby. This is Libby. She likes to do GIS too. So there we go. The Geo Database files have been loaded in QGIS. Now, here's a quick bonus tip. If you want to edit these, right-click in the layers and click Save As to export them in a different file format. So I'm just going to quickly export this to a Spatialite database, which we'll learn more about later in this tutorial. So I'm just going to put in a quick test name, hit OK. Now it's running, it's exporting it. And now it's in our Spatialite database. So we can go ahead and start working with this file if we wanted to edit it or manipulate it. All right, so that's it for Geo Databases. So the next file format we're taking a look at is a KML or KMZ, which is just a compressed version. This originally stood for the Keyhole Markup Language, but it's kind of mutated since then to encompass a lot more than it was originally intended. So you may actually have come across a KML before if you've used Google Earth. So here I am in Google Earth, and I've just loaded up the two files we'll be looking at in QGIS. And you can see here that I have some national parks lines outlining the national parks, as well as points outlining parks in the US. You'll note that the symbology of these points is formatted to this nice tree symbol. And that's because a KML can actually store symbology information. In a single KML file, you can store points, lines, and polygons, as well as symbology. So it's a very versatile file format. So now that we've seen it in Google Earth, let's come over to QGIS and load these same files. All right, so let's jump over to QGIS and take a look at these KML files. So I just have the world polygons on from previous so we can get some context for anything we add. So again, we're going to use the browser here, and I'm just going to go to my KML folder and go ahead and add the US parks as well as the NPS, National Park Service boundaries. So you can see here the first file loaded was the points, and then the second one is going to be polygons outlining the parks. So this just takes a second to load. KMLs are a little bit slower because it's a text-based format, so a lot of information has to be read to display it. And when you're using polygons with the geometry, they're actually pretty complicated. But it's gone ahead and loaded, so you can see here I have the points as well as the polygons. So you can see there's also an attribute table which has any additional information that was stored in the KML. So there you have it. We've added a KML to QGIS, which is a file format you may have seen before in Google Earth. So now we're going to take a look at the GPX file format. So this is something that you'd collect if you'd brought your GPS out with you on your last adventure. So I try to take my GPS whenever I'm out hiking because you can get a lot of neat data for visualization. If you want to see where you hiked, how long it was, your average pace, or the elevation you went up, this is all in your GPX file. And in a future video, I'm going to show you how to process your GPX file to get some cool data out of it. The GPX is an XML-based format, so everything's inside of headers. The GPX is primarily designed to store points and lines, and this is because if you think about your GPS, it's collecting where you are, waypoints, and that track, which is the line of where you've been. So let's jump over to QGIS and have a look. So here I are. I just have a file of some of my adventures in 2018. So I've been trying to take my GPS with me wherever I go. So you'll see when I add this layer to QGIS, it actually pops up this dialog, and that's because there's several files within my single KML. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of them and add them to the map. So again, like I mentioned, this has points, lines, and tracks in it. So here's a bunch of the little trips I've been doing around Southern California. And we can see here the waypoints. I'm going to make them a little more bold. So this is where I've actually taken specific points. The other dots are more for where I've been walking or driving. So you can see some of the routes I've taken around town. And then you can see these lines which connect the points. So if I zoom in here a bit more, you can see that there's a little line connecting all of these. So if I can scroll around, I was on a hike over here in Joshua Tree not too long ago. And you can see here the little track I took. So if I go over here and look at my tracks and open up the attribute table, we're going to see here that each point has a time and an elevation. So this is the information that we can use later to process and get our speed and get a neat looking elevation profile. So you can see using QGIS we can visualize our GPS track data and use it to extract information. So the next file format I'm going to be looking at is a GeoJSON. So the GeoJSON is based on a JSON, which is a JavaScript object notation. It's based on a dictionary-like structure, so if you're familiar with dictionaries in Python, it's going to look very familiar. And a GeoJSON file can store points, lines, and polygons within a single file. And there'll be little attributes with headers like feature, geometry, types, points, line strings, polygons. So for this GeoJSON demo, I got earthquake data from the USGS, which is provided in the GeoJSON format. Because who doesn't want to plot earthquakes and have a look at them? I also have a country's GeoJSON file to set the stage with a polygon base map because like I mentioned, GeoJSONs can store points, lines, and polygons. So let's go ahead and add the country's data. I also have a GeoJSON with polygons of world countries, so we'll go ahead and add that first to set the stage for our earthquakes. The next file I'm going to add is earthquakes which were above 4.5 magnitude. So these are bigger earthquakes. And again, I'm in the browser and just dragging and dropping it into QGIS. I'm going to quickly change the symbology to give these larger earthquakes a little bit more pizzazz. And then I'm going to add in a second earthquake file I got from the USGS, which is just all earthquakes from 2014 in January. So I'm going to add those to the map, and then we can see it load up. So you can see the blue smaller earthquakes have now shown up on top of our larger earthquakes. And you can see here with this base map and this data, we can quickly start visualizing where earthquakes happen. California, you have a lot. Then in Central America, there's a bunch. And if we go on over to the Rim of Fire, wow, that's a lot of earthquakes, right? So here we were able to get this open data from the USGS and start visualizing it and making interesting maps. So that's it for GeoJSONs. All right, so for this next demonstration, I'm going to be looking at XY table. So an XY table is basically anytime you have a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet with columns that have geometry, such as latitude and longitude, or X and Y coordinates. For this demonstration, I've gotten data from the City of Chicago's Open Data Portal, which I downloaded, and we're going to now load it in QGIS and visualize these points. To add an XY layer, go to Layer, Add Delimited Text Layer. We actually have a few settings here to tell QGIS how to process this file. So I'm going to go ahead to navigate to my XY table format. And let's start with the CSV. So I'm just going to click on my CSV file, hit open. And in the delimited text dialog, you can see QGIS actually did a great job loading everything for us. It detected the CSV, picked the X field and Y field, and it also set the WGS coordinate system. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add and let QGIS process this data. So there we have it. Let's just zoom to the layer. And there are all of the 311 service requests from Chicago's Open Data Portal. Actually, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw the lake on here so you get a better feeling for where we are. All right, so now let's add the next file, which is a text file with tab delimitations. So again, it's layer, add delimited text layer. And I'm going to browse to that text file. And once I hit open, we're going to see that QGIS has detected most of the settings. Again, it found that it was tabs, found the X, Y fields, and it found a coordinate system. So we just hit add, close, and away it goes. So here we go, the bus stops in Chicago from their Open Data Portal. And you can see they're grid-like and follow what we'd expect the roads to look like. So the next one we want to add is actually in an Excel file. And right out the box, we can't add these in QGIS. So we're going to go ahead and install a plugin. So go to Plugins, Manage and Install. And it's going to fetch from the online resources. And then just search for the word Spreadsheet. So Spreadsheet Layers is the plugin we're looking for. Just going to hit Install. It should be pretty quick. We're live installing for this demo. And there it is. So we're going to go back now to Layer, Add Layer, and if you go all the way to the bottom, we have Add Spreadsheet Layer. So I'm going to go Browse and look for, there it is, my XLSX. And if you look here, it also is going to find an old-fashioned XLS file. So if we hit Open there, it should automatically detect some settings, but this is a different dialog than the previous one. So the first thing to notice is that Excel's documents have sheets. So I'm on Sheet 1. And then it has the rows to ignore, which is if you have rows you want to skip, and header at first line. So that's really important because that lets it know where to get the attribute information for each column. So if I turn that off, you see here, it just goes to field 1, 2, 3, and it's not sure what anything is. But once I turn that on, it's able to use those names and auto-detect our X and Y fields, and it's also picked out a coordinate system. So I'm going to go ahead and hit go, and let's see what it does. So this is Chicago crimes in this file. And you can see here that it's added all the points to our QGIS project. So if you want to go to it and right-click and look at the attributes of this file, we can see different types of burglaries, the time of day, subcodes. So you can imagine now that we've loaded this data in QGIS, we can start thinking of other neat analyses to do with this crime data. And since it's all open source data from the City of Chicago's Open Data Portal, anyone can get it and start working with it. All right, so we've added XY table data from a CSV, a text file, and Excel spreadsheets. Using QGIS, we were quickly able to turn the column coordinates into geometries and visualize the data on the map. All right, so let's take a look at a Spatialite database. A Spatialite database is a SQLite database that has some extensions so that it can store geometries. It's a single file and it can store feature classes with points, lines, and polygons. Since it is a single file, this makes it really easy to share. It doesn't have all of those subfiles like a shapefile, and we can store many different features in this single storage container. So let's jump over to QGIS and have a look. So I'm just going to my Spatialite folder in the browser, because again, the browser is the easiest way to use these here, and I've just loaded up some of the data that we looked at previously. So I'm just going to shift-click and add it to the canvas. Zoom out a bit because we're zoomed in. And here we go. I have some of my earthquakes, which are points. I have the polygons of the national park boundaries. I have my GPS tracks, which are lines, and they're all just stored within this single file, which makes it easy to share and load. And remember, if you have KML files or GPS tracks or shapefiles, you can save all of those into a SQLite database so that your files are organized and stored in one easy to access place. Alright, there you have it. We've added vector data in QGIS from a variety of sources. We took a look at some open data from the USGS, the City of Chicago's open data portal. I looked at my own personal GPS tracks, and I was able to store all of these in a SQLite database. So hopefully this gets you going with QGIS and working with vector data. And make sure to check back later for more videos in this From Zero to Map series for QGIS 3.0, as well as upcoming videos looking at some data analysis, including looking at GPS tracks and a hotspot analysis for the City of Chicago crime. Thanks again for watching, and be sure to subscribe below if you like this video.